You're listening to All Things Considered here on WNYC. I'm Sean Carlson. If you're a regular listener to this program, you know about our popular transit segment On the Way. It airs every Thursday, but since you came all the way out here to see us live in Industry City, we figured we'd give the people what they want. So we're presenting to you now a very special On the Way on a Wednesday. Joining us, WNYC's transportation reporter Stephen Nesson and Ramsey Khalife and editor Clayton Guzzo. Okay, with the mayoral election less than a week away, the MTA is stepping into the fray and throwing shade at Zohran Mamdani. He wants to make the city's buses free, but MTA Chair Janno Lieber is suddenly trashing the plan. What's he saying?
Basically, he's saying he wants a little policy research behind this plan. You know, free buses, Lieber says, is bumper sticker decision making.
Yeah.
He says if you're going to do this, you're going to need more buses. You're going to need more drivers. You're going to need depots for all those new buses. He wants to see some real plans. He wants to see some real policy research behind this decision, and he just hasn't seen that. There's also a question about MTA bonds, which are backed by fare revenue. So if the bus fare isn't coming in, you know, is that going to satisfy the bondholders? There are contracts involved here. And basically, he's just saying, like, let's study this a little bit more. I did ask him, you guys already did free buses one time, and you studied it. Was that enough? And he's basically like, no.
Okay.
And now a reminder about that, there was a free bus pilot program last year. It was 5 free buses, 1 in each borough. And at the end of it, the MTA board maybe wasn't as enthused about the results, but here's what they found. Ridership had increased 35% on each route. Bus driver assaults dropped tremendously, 48%. But the MTA said that there might have been better ways to address the affordability issues, namely through their Fair Fares program, which is a discounted rate for lower income New Yorkers. But I wrote a story about this last year when the program ended, and I spoke to Assemblymember Mamdani before he was running for mayor, because it was his program, at least he pushed for it. And when he said he wanted to expand that pilot program, he said, well, it didn't really make it through the state legislature only because the MTA had seemed very opposed to it.
Yeah, and Janno Lieber, the MTA chair, is making a fuss about this 6 days before the election, kind of dumping cold water on Mamdani's, one of his main proposals. And there's just a point of context here when you think about Janno's kind of political allegiances, right? He reports to the governor, Governor Hochul, who has endorsed Zohran Mamdani. But Janno's career at the MTA was started by Andrew Cuomo, right, the opponent. So he's kind of like, is Andrew Cuomo putting his thumb on the scale right now? He says he's not. But the timing of this sure does mean something.
Suspicious, yeah.
And Mamdani's whole proposal is based on getting, upwards of $700 million of new money for the MTA so that they can get rid of the bus fares. If I'm Janno Lieber, I want $700 million more dollars so that I can put it into service, but I don't want to give up that revenue from the buses.
Yeah. Now, Stephen, another Mamdani proposal that you've looked into is his plan to remove the NYPD from outreach teams on the subway. They deal with homeless people suffering from a mental health crisis. Folks might remember you're reporting this. You embedded with one of the teams last week. What did you learn?
So this is a city program. It basically pairs a trained nurse with with mental health sort of expertise, as well as 2 outreach workers and 5 NYPD officers. That was the team I was on. Yeah. And basically they're looking around the subway stations for people who are in imminent danger to themselves or others. And it will not surprise you that it didn't take long for us to find someone that sort of fit this description. What surprised me was the nurse who was there sort of talked to this person for like literally 1 minute and assessed and decided they're in imminent danger. And so what that means then is that the police officer steps in and handcuffs the person. And this woman was, to my eyes, she was pretty calm until the handcuffs came on. And then she really freaked out and was like, what's going on? Am I under arrest? And this is what homeless advocates say is the problem, because a police interaction is not necessarily the best way to help these folks. Yeah. But, I did speak to the nurse who made that determination, Richard Perkins, and he said, look, man, things can get real bad real quick down here in the subway. It's a tight space, there's trains, anything could happen, folks get hurt, and it happens a lot. So having police officers to handcuff these folks is actually really helpful to getting them into treatment. He's been doing this since August 2024, and he said basically he's done this 147 times. Wow. And he accompanies someone to the hospital where they get treatment. They're kept for 72 hours, and then they're free to go. Since the program launched, like I said, August 2024, 600 people have been voluntarily and involuntarily taken to the hospital as part of this.
And you just backing things up, it took really more than 2 years to get this program off the ground. Adams and Hochul kind of launched this shortly after Adams took office in 2022. And you might remember there was a string of high-profile assaults and shovings on the subways, large in many cases by mentally ill homeless people. A lot of people remember the Michelle Go case, the woman who was in 2022 was shoved in front of the subway train at Times Square to her death by a man who was later diagnosed schizophrenic. So this is really the policy response to that. Now, Mamdani wants to take the cops out of the equation. It's going to be, whether you keep them in or take them out, there's going to be controversy.
Yeah. So earlier this week, the MTA announced that there will be a 3-year delay to Penn Access. That's a project that would bring Metro North service to the East Bronx. It's a tale as old as time. The MTA is blaming Amtrak. Ramsey, what's going on?
So like you said, Metro North service to Penn Station from the East Bronx, it would travel through the Hellgate line, which crosses the Hellgate Bridge. They would also build 4 new train stations in Hunts Point, Park Chester, Morris Park, and Co-op City. But in order to get all this done, that Hellgate line is owned and operated by Amtrak. It's a federally run agency. And in order to actually do the work, they need to get work outages. That's pretty much, hey, close down this track for the weekend. It's a 55-hour weekend period, and let our guys come in and do this work. But what the MTA is saying is they're not following their end of the bargain. They're not following their contractual obligations. They haven't given enough work outages. And this means the project, at least formally, has been delayed to 2030. It was supposed to be 2027. And the MTA is very upset because they want to bring service to this transit desert in the East Bronx.
The idea, of course, when Grand Central Madison opened, they sent Long Island Railroad trains from, they used to go to Penn Station, now they're going to Grand Central. That freed up space in Penn Station for these Metro North trains. But obviously, it's going to be a while till that happens.
Yeah.
Right, and the MTA is very sensitive over delays. They have a reputation throughout their history of, making big promises and not delivering on time or on budget. And a point here that I always like to make is that if you're an Amtrak worker in New York, you're effectively paid the same salary as an Amtrak worker in Georgia, which means that you're not really incentivized to, come here and be a track worker. They have a staff shortage just by a virtue of the way that they set up their system.
And I'd just like to add, so the MTA is not just announcing the delay and shrugging their shoulders. They actually are still going to go with a 2027 deadline, but it would be reduced service, so about 50% of trains will run through there to 3 stations, not all 4. They still hope by 2030 they can open it up to everyone. And they say that they can do that by running on existing tracks. There's only 2 tracks. The whole project would have been 4 tracks. And they'll need Amtrak's approval, and they gave them a November 12th deadline. They said they don't follow that deadline, there will be legal consequences. But just for context, everybody, Amtrak is federal, and in recent months, there has been a ramp-up of this kind of tension between the MTA and Amtrak because of the Trump administration and his influence.
Yeah. All right, this one's for folks in Southwest Brooklyn. As many of you know, the MTA has a plan to build the Interborough Express light rail line from right here in Sunset Park. It would go to Jackson Heights. It would fill in major transit gaps, but a previous proposal would have had the line go all the way up to the Bronx. Clayton even pointing out that the MTA's feud with Amtrak was part of the the line was truncated.
Well, yeah, this thing should go to the Bronx.
It's
a light rail. It was forever. It was called the Triboro RX, and they were going to take it from Sunset Park all the way up to the Bronx. It's currently now stopping in Jackson Heights, and it's because of the conflicts on the Hellgate line. And the frustrating thing here for a lot of people is that you have the Hellgate line, Amtrak trains run over it, Metro North trains will one day run over it. It goes between Queens and the Bronx. There is no one-seat train ride between Queens and the Bronx. If you're going to get between the boroughs and the subway, you have to stop Manhattan and switch. Yeah. It's a really frustrating thing, and this kind of conflict, this narrow bridge corridor, is a reason why that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a reminder, the IBX, for folks who don't remember, is it's going to run for a 14-mile stretch from Bay Ridge to Jackson Heights, 19 new stations. It could serve as many as 160,000 daily riders. And it is moving forward. There are some small steps. There's actually an open house on November 6th, so folks can learn more about it there.
Okay. Well, thanks to WNYC, Stephen Nesson, Ramsey Khalife, and Clayton Guza. You can stay in the know on all things transit or ask a question of your own by signing up for our weekly newsletter at gothamist.com/ontheway. My friends, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Sean, yeah.